It's July 12th, 2022. I'm trying to listen us hear the way that the Americans are speaking to understand what the educated did with all of the last 40 years of the way they've constructed their hallucinations or their delusion of reality, and how they explain it to one another. Since the infrastructure is broken, I see that someone in the visual arts department, when I strip away the sound and when I just coptically, visually read the screen, there's several things. One is this dot system of connect the dots that interacts with the system of the human. Then they also put in the cranial space, the cephalic space, the skull space, the whatever word you used for the head. They used what looks like a cosmic space, which is really important for dark matter physics that the humans claim that they haven't discovered. I don't believe really anything that they've said because they've interfered with it, they've rearranged it, and that's part of the problem. So it says dealing with uncertainty, label the feeling, focus on the immediate future, find concrete actions, and remove negative temptations. So I've removed food completely. I've got these whatevers. I put an emulsifying agent in it because I looked at my hair and I realized I'm missing essential oils from intake, which are, I think they have something to do with rebuilding, but also with detoxifying, if memory serves me properly, from when the universe was built correctly. Um, but my problem of what I've picked up in the field is the shifting of this. They have, it says dots, and then there's more dots. That invisible space and that invisible network surrounds the body and then interacts with it through time and space in such a way, in like a cosmic egg type of a way. I know in my local area, I can see it right here. I know it has something to do with the problem in the fluctuation in migrants from elsewhere, distractions, a war of a totally different kind, um, business lines, chemicals. It's so many things thrown at um, the space at the same time. And I've caught in action on machine people who said that they were changing my legacy. They were changing the legacy system. I had no idea what that meant. I did not know that they were capable of changing a legacy from a remote location at a computer from inside Long Island. I had no idea. But as I stand here now and I'm starting to put the messages together and the pieces together that whoever it is doing in broadcasting, I mean, when I read through the lines and I see the cosmic space, I see and I know what's happened with the interaction and connection. And I know what it feels like to be debilitated. Not that I asked for it, not that I wanted it. It's just one of the attacks I've undergone while I'm here being held in New York with other things going on. And it's just easier to say, hey, Eric, do you know what happened to like my breeding partner? Because it was really important that I get to that genetic marker system in our ABO, RH negative, only 10%, and in the local area, they're a bigger threat to my person than I think anybody else wants to acknowledge at the American foster family for which I was born into. So it is, I mean, like, it's a life partnership like no other, but again, so I'm having cosmic problems at astrology, and the Eric that I did meet at World Gym, he said two words to me. He said astrology and numerology, and I glitched. I was like, I, and I was like, just give me a second. I was like, I gotta get my thoughts together. I was like, because nobody says that around here. I mean, like, on top of, like, it didn't connect with the Eric bit at that moment. And also, I mean, the fact that he was just so not from the area, that had me at hello. But, I mean, then the words, and I'm just like, I mean, talk about feeling really, like, thrown off guard in the moment, even though the guard stands right before you. So anyhow, it's 2022, and some really serious things have happened since that last meeting of whenever that was, because I don't know, I don't keep calendar on this stuff. But then I go back to listening to how the humans are speaking on the words of how they describe it to themselves. I don't agree, but in their lower level of not knowing things, or the bigger things that are of even bigger concern, but I need a 10% ABO doctor. I don't need just the 90% that's laying around that actually threatens my person every time I enter their space, because they want to come at me with needles and products and all sorts of stuff, and I'm like, I already know they're not allowed to study histology or the blood type of my person. So that's why I don't understand why I'm being held here so exposed. Now, if I rewind this to the beginning of the segment on CBS This Morning, now this aired yesterday, which was July 11th, 2022. Here's what they showed yesterday.
Time for some news you already know. We are living in a time of nearly unprecedented uncertainty. There's the pandemic, there's political upheaval, there's the economy. Is it going to go up and down? We don't know. 87% of adults out there say it feels like there's been a constant stream of crises over the last 2 years, and I agree. That's according to a survey by the...
Now, in the numbers, it's 78, but it's backwards. So with everything in this part of the universe being backwards, which it has been, they're acknowledging it, there's a constant stream of crisis and stress that further breaks down immunity in the field and places larger burden of disease on the person. Again, I'm not one of the 90%.
By the American Psychological...
But it also sources this American Psychological Association poll, March 1 through 3rd. I am at such a dangerous level of left in the field. It's like the most important presidential physical education equipment. It's like a shipment from the gods for the American team. And then, like, there was nobody there to greet the package when it arrived. 10% in, like, blood brother terms, with physical manifestations or physical historically accurate features for past presidents within this section of the world, with the social studies still being taught that's at the federal, the Democratic, and the Republican level. So now at animal, vegetable, mineral, I'm just curious, where do I go?
Logical Association. 73%, meanwhile, say they feel overwhelmed by these crises, and all this uncertainty and change can have a very big impact on our mental health. For more on that, we've got social psychologist Heidi Grant here to explain what this uncertainty is doing to our brain.
Okay, now this is her human in this broken psychology program trying to adapt to this. Some call it an evolution, some call it a revolution. I'm calling it what it is. They've rearranged the dots outside in the infrastructure of the universe that the human body functions within, and it's problematic. On top of that, I'm in a debilitated authoritative position where I don't know how to get to the authorities at the level for which what handles the universal cradle or cradle of aviation. Hello? Or the level of safety net that holds the body in alignment and uprightness and genetic stability. But this is what they're displaying by audio, which is why I had to tune it out. It's how the humans explain to themselves or try to make themselves feel better in small groups or large groups or whatever. However, they tend and shepherd one another and try to make everything like it's all better. I mean, at some level, they call it the excuses that they give one another. Again, like, I'm not getting into the right. I'm hiding between the right and the wrong at the moment.
And how to cope with the fear that often comes along with that uncertainty. And that's exactly how it works, right? You don't know what's going to happen, so you're afraid of what's going to happen.
Exactly. And I think it's so important for people to realize that our brains were just not built for this, right?
So key. No, they weren't. But currently, the system's malfunctioning. Someone has rearranged parts of the universe and the dots that interact with the antenna system that your human works off of. There are others that know about it, but somewhere between a war between the burial plots and the sky above, being the plot map, and the star charter, there's some real serious issues.
For most of human history, we're hunter-gatherers. Our lives were relatively simple, predictable. We focused on what was happening here and now and maybe a little bit into the future. Now we live in a radically different environment, right? So much change, so much information, so much uncertainty. And our brains were actually designed to sort of find that threatening. And so what happens is our brains are constantly in a state of threat. We struggle to problem solve,
So the people in charge of the universe, the people that guard the galaxy, the people that are in charge of public health, safety, and welfare at 10% that look over the 90% because we're not a threat to them, but there is a responsibility of upkeep and keeping some form of infrastructure within the universe, the metaverse, plot, so on and so forth. When it's been damaged as badly as where I'm being held at the moment, what do I do in this debilitated state? Somewhere between Survivor and Big Brother.
We struggle to plan. We get overwhelmed by our emotions. We lose our ability to control our impulses. We actually struggle to learn new things and to pull things from our memory when we.
That's one of the things I've been reporting since I was a youth, since I was a kid. But for some reason, rather than getting me to the marriage and the partnership and the relationship that I required and needed, they, for some reason, put me in some outfield, totally forgotten about, abused, neglected, so on and so forth, with others that either didn't know, didn't recognize, or were being fed the wrong things. So now they're telling you in their words, their broken machines are speaking. They're saying they're having trouble with memory. They're having trouble connecting to the dots in the universe. And they're having trouble functioning, not only at a mental level, of how does the mental faculties work. Well, at the moment, the faculties, the points of polyscience just outside of the human consciousness have been rearranged and toyed with. So now, at times, the human anatomy is malfunctioning, almost like a robot, a highly functioning anatomical robot in the field, which is where that West world and the park and that whole construct of how do I discuss, I'm not supposed to discuss it, I don't want to discuss it, but now that they put it out there and I'm so debilitated, how do they send me a ladder from their ability to get to in and out of helicopters daily and my inability to even find a helicopter pilot?
We need it. So we're all kind of walking around feeling kind of terrible, feeling like we're not at our best. And I think it's so important for people to realize, sometimes we blame ourselves for that, but it really has to do with the fact that our brains just weren't built to handle what we're dealing with. Kind of terrible.
So for me, it just feels I was imprinted differently. It's an imprint. I was imprinted by something, by someone, by some other feature. There is a difference between a negative and a positive on a car battery. It has to do with ebb, flow, and so on and so forth. It's the same thing, kind of, sort of, in a not really kind of way, an easier way to explain it at like really basic, simplistic, without going into anything that need not go into. But I'm debilitated in a facility, no less, that has such dangerous UV at the moment. I mean, they're up at a 9 today again on the scale, which means if I walk out there, I have to put something on to coat my outer epidermis and whatever. I mean, it is just, it's frightening, but on so many different levels, because it really feels like being on a planet all by yourself. I can see how the other planets are aligning. I can see how they're communicating, kind of, sort of, in a not really way, in a one channel in and out, in a one-way conversation. And then my field notes of like, I know I'm important. I know there's importance in this world. I just have had such little access to it, and the ways of other worlds have not been built for me yet. So I don't know, in this debilitated American ancestry person I was born into this universe as, I don't know how to collectively pick the pieces up and try to signal for help, and in the way that I need, not in the way that the humans think they want to design it. Because currently, whatever thinks it had a say or a role has put me in a very dangerous position, and has been for many years, many moons. The moon people, yeah. Somebody out there and I have a problem with the moon people, considering that since 78, I haven't been handled properly. There's been periods where it looked like it was headed for the correct whatever, but it's been a rough go. Star 1978, Star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxies, broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.